Hello, Krieger Middle School. We are back on track, and the topic for this particular week, which is March 4th, 5th, and 6th, is the South, and this would be in the 1800s. So, taking a look at this picture, what do you see? What is growing in the field where the people are located? Who do you see? There are women, there are men, there are children. There is one white man holding a gun and it looks like a dog. So what is that about? So that is going to be part of the South during the 1800s. So first of all, we're looking at the growth of the cotton industry. And before the American Revolution, you had certain things being grown in the South, such as tobacco, rice, and indigo, and sugarcane. Then after the American Revolution, these crop prices dropped, leading to less demand for slave labor and decrease of slave prices. So there were efforts to grow other cash crops that required less labor. So they tried that. What they ended up doing in the South was replacing cotton um, as the crop of choice from those other previous crops. So the problem with cotton was, though, the short staple cotton has a lot of seeds and they're hard to work them out. The long staple cotton, you can. So Eli Whitney in 1793 invented the cotton gin, and that was able to remove seeds from cotton quickly and efficiently. So the cotton boom begins. Planters in the South planted more cotton to supply the textile industries in the northeastern United States and also in Great Britain. The Cotton Belt became a big thing, running from southern Virginia to southwest Texas. The production of cotton grew from 2 million pounds in 1791 to over a billion pounds of cotton by 1860. Cotton plantation owners became wealthier and wealthier with huge numbers of slaves providing the labor. Cotton was less expensive to store and to transport. Scientific methods then become investigated so that they can find ways to keep the soil rich so that they can continually grow cotton because cotton drains the nutrients out of the soil. The cotton industry included planting, harvesting, marketing, and providing all the labor and supplies that was needed for cotton production and for the selling of it. Since bringing slaves in the United States was made illegal in 1808, the slave trade increased within the borders of the United States. So we have the big cotton trade. The South becomes known as King Cotton. Uh, that was a phrase to use to show the importance of cotton in the world of trade. The South traded cotton to Great Britain and the northeastern United States, which led to different port cities like Charleston, Savannah, and New Orleans becoming big cities. Rivers were used to transport cotton to port cities. Crop brokers called factors assisted in the buying and selling of cotton between plantation owners and merchants. It is decided that cotton just isn't enough. There needs to be other crops grown in the South. So they look into this and they start growing corn, rice, sweet potatoes, wheat, sugarcane. Tobacco had lost its favor of being a crop of choice, but it comes back because there was a way to dry it more quickly. Hemp and flax were also grown, and the fibers of these plants were used to make rope to bind the bundles of cotton. Industries developed in the South, like sawmills, cotton mills, ironworks. Competition with Great Britain and northeastern United States was kind of the name of the game, and the South concentrated on their land endeavors, especially cotton. Southern society develops with 1/3 of the Southern white families owning slaves, so 2/3 not. Few families own plantations, but your wealthy plantation owners did own them, and they were politically powerful people. Some plantation owners lived in mansions, some did not. Male planters concerned with raising crops and supervising slave labor. That was their main focus. Running the plantation house was the wife of the job, or the job of the wife. of the plantation owner. She oversaw the raising of children and supervised household slaves, and she arranged social events. Planters sometimes arranged marriages for their children. A southern plantation, this is a picture that shows you different elements of the southern plantation. The main focus really was the crops, the land, but of course a big part of that was also the house, the main house plantation. And the planter and his family lived there. The planter's wife was in charge of running the household. You also, on a cotton plantation, you had an overseer's house, you had the warehouse, you had a stable for the horses, smokehouse for the meats, barns for the animals, um, or holding other items. Your fields, your slave cabins were quite a distance away from the plantation house. And again, the big deal was the fields. Yeomen and poor whites, these were other people that lived in the South. Most white Southerners were actual yeomen who owned few slaves or maybe none at all. Their farms were about 100 acres, so pretty small. They were proud to be a farmer, and this included the women and the children working on the farms as well. Yeomen's worked beside slaves if they had slaves. Poor whites lived as subsistence farmers. They hunted, they fished, they planted small gardens, and they performed odd jobs just to make enough to make it by, to get by. Religion was important in the South. Christianity was the faith. Social activities involved traveling to revivals, weddings, socials. Rural women volunteered a lot as Christian missionaries. Many wealthy white planters justified their slavery that they had by saying that God created them to be superior, to rule over others. Northern Christians disagreed with that idea. Urban life developed where you had southern cities along shipping areas, and that was Charleston, that was Savannah, that was New Orleans. City governments built water systems, new streets, they provided money for education. Slaves did most of the work in the southern cities. They did domestic work like servants. They worked in mills, the shipyards, and other skilled jobs. Wealthy city citizens provided money to charities, and that would make them feel better. Free African Americans in the South. By 1860, there were 250,000 free African Americans. They were descendants either from freed slaves after the American Revolution. They were descendants of the Haitian Revolution, where these people became free as well. They could have been freed slaves because they had escaped from slavery, former slaves who were granted freedom by their owners who had earned enough money to buy their own freedom. Free African Americans lived in both rural areas and urban areas. Most of them that did, though, live in the countryside as paid laborers on plantations. The religion is what brought them together, and oftentimes, too, they worked as skilled artisans. There was discrimination in the South to free African Americans. Laws were passed limiting their rights. They could not vote. They could not travel freely. They could not hold certain jobs. They would have to have whites represent them in business transactions. They were restricted where they could actually conduct business. And many Southern whites believed that free blacks threatened the institution of slavery. Again, here's a picture, skilled artisans. So this shows a barber giving a shave, it looks like. So the task that you are going to be asked to do with this particular assignment for May 4th is take on the roles of all of the following groups of people that were mentioned in the slide presentation: the white plantation owner, the wife of white plantation owner, the yeoman farmer, the children of the plantation owner, poor white farmer, free African American, and slaves. And then what would be positives for their life, what would be negatives in their life, complete the chart, and then also complete the last two columns of the chart. So it looks like this. So the South's perspectives, and complete that, and then also the chart. Questions, please email me. All right, and then we'll talk about slaves on Tuesday.